Mayor Olivia Chow pledges to drop the proposed Toronto tax hike to single digits.
Breaking news from City Hall. On the eve of the release of the mayor's version of the budget, could some relief be coming to Toronto homeowners? Good evening. We're live over Toronto City Hall, where just moments ago, the mayor's office confirmed to CTV News Olivia Chow plans to lower the proposed tax hike.
For weeks, Torontonians were bracing for a 10.5% property tax increase. Now, in the face of mounting pressure from residents, the mayor is looking to soften the blow on taxpayers. CTV's John Musselman joins us live from City Hall with those details. John.
And Michelle, you're right, 10.5%. We're also worried and hearing the possibility of 16.5%, but we can confirm from the mayor's office tomorrow that the property tax increase for the city of Toronto will be 9.5%. Now, there's also some other news here that impacts the city of Toronto, and it's with the federal government. The immigration minister today announced that he will provide $362 million to help provinces and municipalities support asylum seekers, but he would only specify that the province of Quebec is getting $100 million. Toronto will receive a significant amount of the remainder. We just don't know how much yet. Mayor Olivia Chow has been asking for $250 million for 2024 to cover the yearly costs of supporting asylum seekers, and she's called the federal announcement encouraging. Her budget tomorrow is still expected to conclude that double-digit, well, possibly now 9.5%, as we're just learning. Here's what the minister had to say this afternoon about the asylum money for the City of Toronto.
Well, the City of Toronto will be getting a significant amount of this. I have nothing to do with a federal levy. You can call a municipal tax whatever you want. It's still a municipal tax, but there will be significant amounts announced in the coming days.
Now, again, Mayor Chow said she's encouraged by this news, and she put out a statement today saying that she's looking forward to working with the minister to find out how much money will come to the City of Toronto. And again, just recapping for property owners, the property tax increase will be 9.5%. Reporting live outside City Hall, I'm John Musselman. I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, John. Still ahead, will the TDSB cancel classes the day of the total solar eclipse? The board is set to vote on whether to bump up the April PA Day to coincide with the celestial event as parents weigh in. But first, the ongoing fight against auto thefts.
Car owners doing their best to outsmart the criminals to protect their property, and insurance companies are taking notice. CTV's John Woodward has one man's story. John.
Nathan, the arms race continues. You've got insurance companies pushing drivers to get GPS devices to find their stolen cars. You've got savvy thieves removing those devices as they go. And you've got one man who outsmarted them by going one step further.
They try to break this glass first.
This is Aman Sidhu's new Toyota Tundra truck today. Electronics ripped out, smashed glass in the back. But despite everything that happened Wednesday, it's still his.
Now I'm happy.
Happy because his Tundra didn't join the surging number of vehicles that thieves take from driveways across the province, taken for resale across the world, with profits pocketed by organized criminals. Some insurers are offering discounts for GPS trackers that can help authorities recover the car. The Insurance Bureau of Canada says these incentives are typically targeted to high-risk vehicles. Participation rates have steadily increased among the owners of high-risk vehicles as insurers offer these incentives. But they may need more than that, Sidhu says. The thieves ripped out the tracker Toyota installed, but the Mississauga mechanic had an ace up his sleeve.
I installed my own GPS in a hidden location that was working. The thieves never think there is another GPS in the car.
So early Wednesday morning, he followed that second signal to a parking lot near Avenue Road and the 401, something that's known as a cooling off location.
When I checked the hood of my car, it was still a little bit hot. It looks like they left the car 10-15 before me.
Cooling off locations are used by these car thieves. It's a location where they take the cars in between theft and maybe their ultimate destination.
Police say they are intercepting some vehicles at cooling off locations and rely on the public to help spot them.
You know your neighborhood. You know what fits and what doesn't fit. And if you see something that looks suspicious, contact police.
Sidhu says all drivers should get some kind of backup system.
So with a $20 for a month fee, I save my vehicle.
And stop thieves from making off with a $100,000 truck. In case you're wondering whether the next logical step in this arms race is 3 GPS trackers, the answer is really anything the thieves aren't expecting. And the experts tell us just multiple layers of security is a good idea. Reporting live from Mississauga, I'm John Woodward. Nathan, back to you.
All right, thank you, John. And today, federal and provincial politicians were in the GTA talking tough to put the brakes on auto theft.
They're recommitting funding to fight it and calling for harsher penalties for those committing the crime. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris has the details.
They're violent, startling crimes, all to get a car. Storming a home to swipe keys, forcing drivers out of their vehicles. The federal government made clear today that $121 million promised to Ontario last spring to tackle auto theft, guns and gang crimes will start to flow this year.
To deal with the criminal linkages, the organized crime linkages to an increasingly violent and alarming circumstance around auto theft.
The cash spread over 5 years. The Premier hopes it will help calm the anxiety some Ontarians are feeling.
I've talked to friends that are sleeping with baseball bats beside their bed because someone's going to kick the door in and put a gun to their head and say, hand over your keys.
Doug Ford wants to see a harsher approach to this brand of violent theft.
Why don't we put a mandatory sentence? You're breaking into someone's house with a weapon and threatening families. You should be going to jail. No matter what, minimum. And I'm not an expert at it. Throw them in jail for 10 years. I don't care how long it is. I don't want them in our province.
Mandatory sentencing laws haven't always lived up to constitutionality tests at Canada's Supreme Court. But the Attorney General's ears are open.
It's about, yes, looking at the criminal code, for which I'm responsible, and I'm very open to looking at the criminal code.
Varani says there's a role for auto manufacturers and insurance companies to play. Then consider the border agency and our ports.
They're ending up in a trailer going to the port in Montreal or in Halifax and then on their way to the Middle East and West Africa. We need to stem that and cut the head off the snake right there at the borders.
To stop the flow of stolen vehicles out of the country. The federal government has convened a national summit on auto theft, looking for short, medium, and long-term solutions. It takes place 1 week from today. Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
Still to come tonight, getting consumers charged up on electric vehicles. A special report. Are we ready to meet Canada's zero-emission mandate?
And here's a live look at the city above Riverdale Park from our CTV News choppers. Some people out there are playing a little bit of shinny. We are well above seasonal. Still some clouds as the month of January comes to an end, and February will be a mild start. Let's take a look at our satellite radar. There are still some clouds that are just rolling through the city. Not heavy, but there is a bit of an overcast. Right now, we're well above seasonal. 4 in Oshawa, 2 in Toronto, 2 in Milton. Normal this time of year is -2. And overnight, we're going to be above seasonal as well. This trend continuing, +1, cloudy, a slight chance of drizzle tomorrow morning. We'll give you all those details on the full forecast a little bit later. We turn to details of a terrifying encounter for a Mississauga man and his dog.
They were attacked by a coyote, forced to fight it off. He's sharing their story as a warning to others. CTV's Beth McDonnell joins us live with what happened and what officials say you should do if you're in a similar situation. Beth.
Michelle, it was a shocking attack. The man says he knew coyotes were in the area, but never expected for him and his dog to be a target.
Actually still try to go after her, which is a little disturbing.
Around 6:45 at night, Alvaro Furtado was walking his 5-year-old Jindo named Vixen when the coyote slammed into his leg.
And I looked down and there was this gray-brown mass, and it wasn't snarling, it wasn't making any sound whatsoever, but I was trying to get to her. And then she kept pulling really hard, and then she got free.
In the chaos of the moment, Furtado lost hold of Vixen's leash and says the coyote was trying to get in between his legs.
I was wearing hiking boots at the time, so I ended up kicking it and punching it at the same time, and then looked over because a car was coming up the side of the street, and then I looked back and it was gone.
The attack happened near a school near the corner of the Queensway and Cliff Road. The fear of coyotes, very real in this pocket of Mississauga.
It is scary, yeah. Very scary when you see them because they are very large. They're not small. I've seen people actually carry weapons like sticks and stuff if they're walking in like the park areas.
Oh, I've seen the pack, 3, 4. I think the city should relocate them, especially in residential area here.
Stop. You're going to focus on the coyote, and then you're going to look big. So you're going to put your arms in the air and you're going to make a lot of sudden movements, and you're going to be loud. So you're going to be, get back, Coyote! Get back, Coyote!
This City of Mississauga public education officer says the best way to deal with a coyote is to make your body big and make lots of noise. He says the number of attacks aren't up, but the number of people feeding wild animals is, and people should stop.
They don't see humans as food, but an easy source of food. So they might just approach someone, and then if someone doesn't feed them, they might act aggressively with them, and that's when the negative situations occur, unfortunately.
Furtado is thankful both he and Vixen are okay and wants to warn others to watch out.
She's like a child almost. I mean, she's 5 years. We've had her for the past 5 years. We've gotten very fond of her. It would be absolutely horrific if something happened to her.
Furtado doesn't plan to walk Vixen when it's dark anymore. Furtado plans to take Vixen to the vet for a possible rabies shot just to be in case. Other safety tips: keep your dog on a leash and avoid walking your dog at dusk and when it's dark. Reporting live, I'm Beth McDonnell. Back to Michelle and Nathan.
All right, thank you, Beth. A major disruption on our roads this morning. The search is on for a dump truck that scattered chunks of rock and concrete on several highways. At around 6:30, Toronto police received reports of debris on the westbound Gardiner Expressway linked to several crashes starting at Park Lawn. Callers then reported someone hitting a concrete slab in the middle lane near Islington. The truck ended up on the 427 and the westbound 401. Peel Police tell CTV News the investigation is ongoing.
An upcoming cosmic event has become a source of debate for parents and school officials.
A solar eclipse is set to darken the sky in April, and the TDSB wants to join other boards and cancel classes because of it. CTV's Janice Golding joins us live with the story. Janice.
Hi, Nathan. Well, school boards across the GTHA have been changing their April PA day to coincide with a total solar eclipse, something that trustees here at the Toronto District School Board will be debating tonight. It's a rare celestial event, and on April the 8th, Toronto will be in the path of this year's total solar eclipse.
We want to make sure that everyone stays as safe as possible.
The thing is, the eclipse will cast its shadow in several parts of southern Ontario sometime between 2 and 4 p.m., when thousands of kids get out of class. And school boards are fielding concerns children might look up at the sun.
Looking at it for a prolonged period of time or any period of time without the proper eye protection can result in partial or even complete eyesight or the loss of eyesight. So we don't want to mess around with that.
As a result, trustees are voting today about whether the Toronto District School Board should move the PA day that was scheduled for April the 19th to April the 8th to coincide with the eclipse. About a half dozen school boards in the province have already done so. In fact, just today, the Toronto Catholic District School Board sent home a letter to parents about the change, saying it had been encouraged to, quote, prioritize safety in such unique circumstances. Still, not all parents we spoke to today are on board with the switch.
I think they just got to stay in school.
I guess it's a little too much coddling.
Yeah, I will be, agreeing on that idea.
You think you can keep the kids safer at home?
Yeah, for sure.
The problem is if they make a PA day and kids aren't, or they're at home, there's no guarantee that they're not going to go out and look at the sun.
I think it's something so small that if they're spending their time on figuring that out, then they're missing the really big problems.
The board says, however, it's not just concerned about children's vision, it's also worried about traffic safety issues, given children could be returning home in partial or total darkness. Now, the TDSB meeting is currently in camera, but it will be opening up to the public at 7 o'clock with a vote on changing the PA day taking place as item number 15 on the agenda. Reporting live, I'm Janice Golding. Now back to Nathan.
All right, thank you, Janice. A motion about flags on school property was on the agenda at the York Catholic District School Board meeting last night, but it's been deferred. Trustee Frank Alexander put forward a motion to amend the board's flag policy. It would only allow the Canadian flag, Ontario flag, municipal flag, Vatican flag, or school flag to be flown. There's been contentious debate in the past involving the Pride Progress flag. And last year, the York Catholic trustees voted against flying it.
Dramatic video to share with you tonight of an attempted break-in in the city's East End. This footage was captured early yesterday morning at a home near Queen Street East and Victoria Avenue. This is just before 4 a.m. Investigators say 4 men trying to force their way inside, but they weren't successful. They actually gave up and fled in a dark-colored vehicle. Anyone with information is asked to contact police at 55 Division or Crime Stoppers.
And Toronto police are looking for a suspect accused of stabbing a stranger near Yonge and Dundas yesterday afternoon. At around 3 p.m., investigators say this man approached someone he apparently did not know and stabbed them from behind with a syringe before fleeing. 43-year-old Aaron Chaumanchuk of no fixed address is wanted for aggravated assault and assault with a weapon. There's a major shift happening on our roads. From government to the automotive industry, a powerful push is underway to get motorists to switch to electric vehicle technology.
But are we ready? In the first of a 3-part series, CTV's Scott Lightfoot looks at what needs to happen to go emission-free.
Kenneth Bacor has been behind the wheel of an electric vehicle since 2018.
My motivation was really about the environment, right? Trying to not emit anything out of a tailpipe, driving a vehicle that didn't have any emissions. So that's how I got into it. But then afterwards, I realized all these other benefits of being quiet, comfortable, easy to drive, and of course, the financial savings.
Bacor is not only a member of the EV Society of Canada.
Coming up on this edition of the EV Revolution Show,
he also hosts his own YouTube show where he educates people about EV issues and the vehicles themselves.
I'm a realist, so I know that EVs aren't the silver bullet for everything for combating climate change. They're one piece of a big puzzle, and an all-electric vehicle may not work for everybody.
Last year, the federal government announced that by 2035, all new light-duty vehicles sold in Canada will be required to be zero-emission vehicles. A major part of that changeover will be getting drivers familiar with the vehicles and the technology.
Most Canadians have never touched one. Most Canadians have never been in one. And the experience of driving in an EV and the experience of driving an EV is very different.
According to Auto Trader, it's estimated that about 1 in 10 Canadians owns a zero-emission vehicle, the most popular types being hybrid or electric.
We've been selling them to the early adopters. The equation for an early adopter is very different because they're buying it for a different reason. It may be because they have very, very strong feelings from an environmental standpoint. They're very technology forward. They're just excited about it. So they're prepared to make concessions that as we move into the majority, consumers won't be.
To get to their goal, the federal government has set a series of progressive sales targets from 20% of all new light-duty vehicle sales in 2026 to 60% in 2030 to 100% in 2035. But according to a survey by Auto Trader, Canadians' intentions to purchase an EV actually declined last year, with only 56% of those looking for a new car considering an EV. That's down from 68% the year before. For those drivers, pricing was the biggest issue.
In BC and in Quebec, where we've had strong provincial support for EV consumer rebates, we have much better penetration. Ontario used to have a consumer EV rebate. It was a very big one. I think it was $14,000. When the Ford government came in, they took that away, and we immediately saw a dramatic drop in EV sales.
There are also other issues on the minds of drivers, including range anxiety, worries about how far the vehicle will go on a charge, and the accessibility of charging stations.
I don't think most Canadians do understand enough about the benefits of electric vehicles.
Statistics Canada says that in the third quarter of last year, more than 10% of all new vehicles registered in this country were zero-emission vehicles. It's a sign that Canadians are getting more plugged into the idea of switching to zero-emission vehicles, but that it could still be a long road before everyone is on board. Scott Lightfoot, CTV News.
Tomorrow, who will be in charge of charging? We'll look at just what kind of infrastructure will be needed to ensure Canada's plan to transition to zero-emissions vehicles by the year 2035 doesn't run out of gas.
In Nova Scotia, more than 24 recommendations have been made following an inquiry into why a former soldier killed 3 members of his family and himself. CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver reports.
After 2 tours in Afghanistan, Corporal Lionel Desmond came home to Nova Scotia in 2016 a broken man, released from the military with post-traumatic stress disorder and major depressive disorder. Conditions a judge in Nova Scotia said today required consistent and comprehensive mental health treatment that wasn't always there.
It took many months to ramp up the care that he so desperately needed. This despite time being of the essence. No one person should have a finger pointed at. The issue is systemic.
On January 3, 2017, police in Nova Scotia discovered Desmond's body in this home, along with the bodies of his mom, wife, and their 10-year-old daughter. Desmond shot and killed his family before turning the gun he bought that same day on himself.
It's hard every year that goes by to think like, wow, like another year is gone and they're not here.
Today, Judge Paul Scoville, who presided over the 56-day inquiry into what led to the murder-suicide, issued 25 recommendations, including that the province of Nova Scotia advocate the federal government to have a case manager assigned to veterans transitioning out of the armed forces, that the province update its suicide risk assessment and intervention policy, and that the province provide more comprehensive virtual care to rural African Nova Scotian communities.
If these had been in place back in 2017, it's very likely, I think, that Corporal Desmond would still be alive, his family would still be alive, together, and happy.
The Veterans Affairs Minister says some changes have already been made.
This includes increased case management services, more robust mental health supports, and a redesigned transition process.
One of the recommendations is to create an implementation committee with a 5-year mandate to ensure that today's recommendations are put in place. Annie Bergeron-Oliver, CTV News, Ottawa.
And Ottawa says it expects Canadians can start claiming coverage under the new National Dental Plan in May, but dentists and other providers still don't have details about how the program will work.
There are some difficulties and challenges in some of those conversations, but we're ready imminently to be able to share information with all providers, with all dentists. But it was really important that we work through those issues with the associations over the last little while, and we'll be able to talk about the fruits of those negotiations very soon.
There's no information yet about how much the government will pay for services or how providers can sign up. The program is for people who don't have insurance. Applications began this month with more than 400,000 people over the age of 72 enrolled so far.
It is the Canada Border Service Agency's largest ever narcotics seizure in the prairies, more than 400 kilograms of methamphetamine.
The seizure only occurred a couple of weeks ago, and given the amount of the drugs that were located, we have a lot of investigative work to do. Normally, this type of seizure is the result of an extensive, years-long investigation. In this instance, we have a massive quantity of drugs and now need to work backwards and look at every detail.
The drugs were found in several large suitcases inside a transport truck at the Boissevin port of entry. It was heading to Winnipeg from the U.S. Police say the drugs are valued at about $50 million. The driver has been charged with importing methamphetamine and possession for the purpose of trafficking. He will appear in court next month.
In the Middle East, Israeli forces carried out more airstrikes in the Gaza Strip. Gunfire was heard outside a hospital in Khan Yunis, where witnesses say the attacks intensified. In Gaza City, the health ministry reports 150 people have been killed in the last 24 hours. It says the death toll from Israel's offensive is now nearly 27,000. The international community is hoping to prevent a wider conflict that began after Hamas killed 1,200 people on October 7th and took over 250 hostages.
The U.S. says an umbrella group of Iranian-backed militias was responsible for the drone attack that killed 3 soldiers in Jordan. Sunday's drone strike on a military base injured at least 40 others. The Americans believe the attack was planned, resourced, and facilitated by a group called the Islamic Resistance in Iraq. U.S. President Joe Biden is continuing to weigh response options. Iran is threatening to respond to any U.S. attack.
Meanwhile, Houthi rebels say they attacked an American merchant ship in the Gulf of Aden. It came hours after the militants fired missiles at a U.S. Navy destroyer. In Yemen, hundreds of students and academics gathered to show support for Palestinians in Gaza. The U.S. and Britain have launched strikes on Houthi targets in the country. Today, American forces destroyed a Houthi surface-to-air missile that was determined to be a threat to a U.S. aircraft.
To Russia's war on Ukraine, and there was a prisoner exchange today between the two countries. Kyiv says 270 of its POWs were freed. Among the Ukrainians released were members of the armed forces, National Guard, Border Service, and National Police. It was the 50th such swap since the beginning of Russia's invasion, with more than 3,000 prisoners repatriated. The Kremlin says 195 of its POWs were handed over today. They will be flown to Moscow for treatment and rehabilitation.
In Washington, the safety of children on social media was front and center on Capitol Hill as several top tech CEOs testified at a Senate hearing.
Don't you think they deserve some compensation for what your platform has done? Help with counseling services, help with dealing with the issues that your services caused?
Our job is to make sure that we build tools to help keep people safe.
Are you going to compensate them?
Senator, our job and what we take seriously is making sure that we build industry-leading tools to find harmful content,
make money,
take it off the services,
to make money.
And to
Let me ask you this.
Mark Zuckerberg was also asked if he has apologized to the victims' families. The Meta CEO then turned to address them directly, telling them he's sorry for everything they've been through. TikTok and other social media CEOs also testified. Well, back here at home, the wait is almost over for hockey fans. NHL All-Star Weekend is here.
This year, it launched a new licensing requirement to address the problem. But as CTV's Sean Leithong reports, actually, this story is for our Mike Walker. In fact, have a look.
Crews are busy setting up the Metro Toronto Convention Centre for what the NHL is describing as 4 days of hockey heaven. Nick Gennarelli is overseeing the NHL All-Star Fanfare.
Being in an Original Six city, the fans here are really passionate, and we expect them to show up with big numbers.
There is a lot to see, including the NHL's 19 trophies and a chance to get up close and take a picture with the Stanley Cup, which arrives tomorrow.
It's the most famous trophy in sport. It's 130 years old and 3 feet high and 36.5 pounds of hockey history.
Plus artifacts showcasing Toronto's hockey history from minor hockey to the evolution of the Maple Leafs.
Dating back to the early days of the Leafs, of Art Duncan and Bob Davidson in the old style jerseys, all the way up till today with Austin Matthews, and it's an education about what hockey means to Toronto.
Now, there are plenty of opportunities here to put your hockey skills to the test, including a little target practice representing the basement. Maybe you did this as a kid. Oh, close.
From the accuracy and hardest shot challenges, just like the pros, to the NHL mascot showdown, a kids zone, and autograph sessions with some NHL stars and alumni. The fanfare is the size of more than 17 NHL rinks. It kicks off Thursday afternoon with the All-Stars walking the red carpet.
The fact that all the players are going to be here up close and personal for fans attending fanfare is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that you can't be missed.
A new event for All-Star Weekend is the Pride Cup, a ball hockey game with players competing from the Toronto Gay Hockey Association.
Hockey's for everyone, and we can't wait to showcase this event.
And with Scotiabank Arena selling out, there will be viewing parties on the big screens here for the skills competition and Saturday's All-Star game. The doors open the fanfare at 2 p.m. tomorrow. The NHL is expecting 30,000 people to attend this 4-day event. Mike Walker, CTV News.
And representatives of the NHL, MLSE Foundation, and the City of Toronto gathered this evening to unveil the 2024 NHL All-Star Legacy Project. More than $500,000 will go toward revitalizing ball and ice hockey rinks at 3 city parks, including Alexandra Park. The project's expected to engage more than 23,000 youth each year.
Also tonight, he might be sorry he asked. Elmo tweeted a simple question and got an earful. Many of the comments not fit for Sesame Street, the deluge of despair, and what it says about humanity.
And here's a live shot of the city. Normally this time of year, the end of January, early February is the coldest time, but not now. And that might be good for those outside, maybe skating at Nathan Phillips Square, or maybe those in from out of town for NHL All-Star Weekend in Toronto. If you're heading to any of the events tomorrow at Scotiabank Arena or Metro Toronto Convention Centre, it's going to be mild. There's a chance of flurries throughout the day, but well above seasonal. We'll give you a look at the full forecast after the break.
The city of Brampton is trying to crack down on overcrowded rental units.
This year, it launched a new licensing requirement to address the problem, but as CTV's Sean Leithong reports, local landlords are pushing back.
A pilot project in Brampton requiring residential rental units to be licensed has been facing backlash from landlords and recently put on pause. Despite the pushback, Mayor Patrick Brown says the project will go ahead.
We're not going to tolerate slum landlords in our city. We're not going to tolerate people creating fire traps or unsafe living conditions. Enough is enough.
Today, the city provided an update to the Residential Rental Licensing Pilot Project, or RRL. They were faced with a nearly full council chamber of angry opposition to the plan. Many expressing frustration afterwards.
We don't want RRL. We want a program that can legalize or non-compliant resident units can be compliant.
The Residential Rental Licensing Project passed last December. Beginning earlier this month, it required landlords with up to 4 residential units to obtain a license, with the goal of clamping down on overcrowded rental units.
Just this week, I was informed by the fire chief of a location just a few days ago in the downtown with 25 students living in a basement apartment. 25 students.
The program was put on pause this week, according to the city, in order to streamline some of the process. At the time, only 29 landlords had applied for a license, and a petition against the program has over 7,100 signatures. Outside City Hall this afternoon, a group of landlords were saying that the RRL pilot project unfairly targets them.
And I'm right now, if I'm talking on the behalf of that 99% of the landlords who do not want the overcrowding.
Currently, legal rental units in Ontario must meet building and fire code standards and be registered with the city. Ravi Sohal is a landlord owning a property with 2 legal apartments inside. He says the problem with overcrowding can be dishonest tenants who sign a lease for 4 people, but soon more people move in.
Now we have the 6 or maybe the 10 people are living. What the city response is that they cannot take the tenant out because the landlord-tenant board is the only authority to evict these tenants.
He says the landlord-tenant board moves slowly, but the residential rental licensing program would fine him. Despite the fierce opposition, this pilot project is set to resume in March and continue for 2 years. Sean Leathong, CTV News.
Weather is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Well, we are now into the final hours of the month of January 2024. It was cold at times. It got pretty cold for a moment, but really it's been a mild month.
Yeah, I almost forgot what the snow's all about. And we know it's going to come, but it's going to take a while. I mean, some of these long-range forecasters are saying maybe in a couple of weeks we'll get back to typical, February temperatures. But yeah, we've kind of been spoiled. Looking at the current conditions, well above seasonal once again, 1 in Ottawa, 2 in Toronto, 2 in Windsor. And the story really is the cloud cover. So the cloud cover is going to stay with us throughout tonight and also into tomorrow. And there's just a few little cells of rain. So that's why we've got a chance of drizzle throughout the day. But the cloud cover is going to clear by about 6 o'clock in the evening. And then we're going to have pretty much clear skies. The lows for tonight, 1 in Toronto, 0 in Waterloo, -1 in Peterborough. Normal this time of year is -11. And then the highs for tomorrow, 4 in Peterborough, 5 in Toronto, 3 in Waterloo. Again, well above seasonal, so a great mild day if you like the mild weather. Looking at the first of the month tomorrow, the chance of drizzle, but the high 5. And then Friday, that's Groundhog Day. We're going to clear. We're going to have clear skies. Temperatures cool down a little bit, but not that much. A high of +1 for Friday. And then look at Saturday, +3, lots of sunshine. Same thing on Sunday, +3, lots of sunshine. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, this run of sun is going to continue. The only thing of note is that the cool down at night will be a little bit lower than maybe what we've been used to, -3s and 4s, etc. But we're kind of spoiled with this mild weather, which is going to continue for a while. Eventually the snow will come, but we're going to have to be patient.
Also tonight, a Sunnybrook psychiatrist pens a letter to the Prime Minister calling for a national approach to suicide prevention. Why he and others believe we can do better to save lives in this country. A Toronto psychiatrist is spearheading an initiative to create a national suicide prevention strategy.
And he has support from healthcare workers and families across Canada and 30 other countries. We get more from CTV Health reporter Pauline Chan.
Dear Prime Minister Trudeau, we are a group of suicide prevention experts and stakeholders from across Canada and around the world.
This is the letter that Dr. Bark Sr. has sent to the Prime Minister.
We have to go that one step further and create a national approach which will do everything that we can to save lives in this country.
Some 40 countries already have national strategies focusing on suicide prevention, but Senior says we're not necessarily late to the game.
Because we can learn the things that have gone well and have not gone well in other countries and try to create the best, most modern strategy that we can.
One innovative element he wants included for Canada?
So historically, suicide prevention has been housed in the Ministry of Health, which is important. Healthcare is obviously crucially important for suicide prevention, but we have to think broader. We need to think about housing and finance and education and have all hands on deck to tackle this crucially important problem.
Well, Ellie tried. He was diagnosed first with anxiety and then bipolar disorder, and he did try to live with it.
David and Deborah Cooper lost their son Ellie 13 years ago. Each year, about 4,000 Canadians die by suicide, a number David fears is an underestimate due to religious and social stigmas. They hope a national strategy will especially support the 18 to 35 age group, young adults who are only able to access relatively short 6 to 8 week programs here in Canada. They're also working to create a long-term farm and therapy program named Ellie's Place.
These farms are 6 months to a year to learn to live with the illness, to learn responsibility for yourself, for others, the land, and nature. And then 1 to 2 years in transition to continue to learn to live with the illness and to learn a skill.
The group has found a potential location, but it likely won't open for a couple of years. In the meantime, the Coopers and others are looking to ensure that legislation and funding for initiatives like this are in place across Canada. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
And if you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, there is help available. You can call or text Canada's Suicide Crisis Helpline at 988 or visit 988.ca.
A survey out today shows a growing proportion of Canadians would like to spend as many years as they can aging in place. The National Institute on Aging asked Canadians ages 50 and older who already lived in their own homes if they'd like to keep doing so as they age. 88% said yes last year, up from 85% in 2022. Most other respondents said they weren't sure, while only 2% said they want to move into long-term care homes. The NIA says the COVID-19 pandemic helped intensify the preference to age at home.
Adele has announced some plans after her Las Vegas residency comes to an end in June.
Adele, live in Munich.
Adele will play her first concert dates in mainland Europe since 2016. It will happen at a special custom-built venue in Munich, Germany on 4 dates in August. The singer says she couldn't think of a more wonderful way to spend her summer and end this beautiful phase of her life and career, adding, "Guten Tag, babes."
That was great.
I didn't see that coming.
I love it. I love it. Okay, following in the footsteps of Kate Bush's Running Up That Hill, another decades-old track is making its way up the music charts thanks to a recent on-screen nod.
It's murder on the dance floor. You better not kill the groove.
2001 dance pop track Murder on the Dance Floor has gone viral since it appeared in last year's psychological thriller Saltburn. Singer Sophie Ellis-Bextor has been invited to perform the track at this year's BAFTA Film Awards and says she cannot wait.
Elmo, everyone's furry friend, has gone and opened the floodgates of sadness.
He didn't plan to. He simply asked a question on social media, and boy, did he get answers. Our Andrea Case joins us now to talk about what has clearly struck a chord with humanity, Andrea.
It certainly has, Michelle. Nathan, I should ask both of you how you're doing today, but I will get to that after the show. On X, one person called Elmo and his supporting cast of Sesame Street characters mental health avengers. This after one tweet has got the whole world talking about mental health. On Monday, the Sesame Street character Elmo, who refers to himself in the third person, asked a simple question on X. Elmo is just checking in. How is everybody doing? By today, there were close to 200 million views. There were some positive ones, but no one was prepared for the breadth and depth of the responses. From Oscar the Grouch,
Grouchy.
Still smarting from Sunday's Detroit Lions losing football game, the Detroit Free Press writes, "We've been better, Elmo." Rapper T-Pain revisited the lyrics of his 2007 hit Bartender and posted the words, "I'm just looking for somebody to talk to and show me some love, if you know what I mean." From actress Rachel Ziegler, resisting the urge to tell Elmo, "I'm kinda sad." As to why so many people responded so openly to their furry friend, I can understand after meeting Elmo in 2012 at the CNE. Last night, President Biden weighed in and used the opportunity to highlight the importance of mental health. Thank you, Elmo, for checking in with a reminder for us to pause and take a mindful moment to focus on how we're feeling. For emotional well-being resources and more, visit Sesame Workshop. The hashtag emotional well-being is trending from the White House to Sesame Street. Elmo returned to X today, writing, he is glad he asked and will check in again soon.
Hey, thanks, CTV. Elmo loves you.
And the power of Elmo. Now, when I met him like a dozen years ago, people were emotional to meet him, tearing up, and I recall one grown man crying because Elmo meant so much to him. So you can understand why people are responding to this one tweet or X. For CTV News, I'm Andrea Case. Michelle, I'll send it back to you.
You're so lucky you met Elmo. Thanks, Andrea.
You're welcome.
After the break, relief for those who've been worried about a recession. Canada's economy grew more than expected towards the end of last year. The latest GDP numbers and what they signal in minutes.
On the next CP24 Breakfast,
Olivia Chow is unveiling her first budget as Mayor of Toronto, and we'll have the latest on the numbers and analysis.
CP24 Breakfast up first at 5:30.
Updating our top stories hours before she unveils her 2024 budget, the office of Mayor Olivia Chow tells CTV News Toronto that a proposed property tax hike will now be pegged at 9.5%. That's lower than an expected double-digit increase. The federal government also said it'll pay the city back for costs incurred from housing and supporting asylum seekers.
You're breaking into someone's house with a weapon and threatening families. You should be going to jail.
Premier Doug Ford and federal ministers highlighted today the issue of auto theft in this province, noting funding from Ottawa to tackle those incidents is on the way. Canada's Attorney General said he's open to looking at potential changes to the criminal code.
I think they just got to stay in school.
I guess it's a little too much coddling.
And the Toronto District School Board is considering joining other local boards in moving a PA day to April 8th because of a solar eclipse that day. There are concerns students may look at the sun without proper eye protection. The TDSB said is trying to keep everyone safe.
Remember to keep up to date day and night through our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca, and by downloading the CTV News app. And if you ever have a news tip, photos, or video of breaking news, let us know.
On the markets, the Canadian dollar is trading lower a quarter of a cent to 74.39 US. Oil declined almost $2 to a bit below $76 US a barrel. And the TSX slid 205 points to end the day at 21,021.88.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
Canada's economy grew more than expected in November, with GDP increasing by 0.2%. Statistics Canada says the rebound came from goods-producing sectors like manufacturing and resources. Some analysts argue the strength in the economy gives the Bank of Canada more time to hold interest rates at higher levels. Others argue that's not just possible, but necessary. Markets are pricing in a rate cut by June.
The Toronto Raptors are off tonight after a much-needed win in Chicago.
Scotty B. And Thad Young shot it from the hip, and Thad Young collects and delivers.
Toronto ended a 5-game losing skid with a 118-107 victory over the Bulls. The Raptors are in Houston tomorrow night. Meanwhile, former Raptor Marc Gasol is calling it a career. The standout defender announced his retirement today after 14 seasons in the league. Gasol was traded to Toronto in the 2018-2019 season and won his only NBA title here. He closed out his career with the Los Angeles Lakers in 2021 and went on to play in his native Spain.
The uniforms for next month's Super Bowl have been revealed. Kansas City is the designated home team and has chosen its red uniform. The San Francisco 49ers will wear their traditional road white jerseys for the February 11th championship game in Las Vegas. The team sported the same colors when they faced off 4 years ago in the Super Bowl. And some familiar four-legged friends will be ready for their close-up on Super Bowl Sunday. Budweiser has released a teaser of its new ad that will air during the big game. It features the company's iconic Clydesdales making a delivery after a storm closes the highways.
And just ahead, a new trend that has patrons squealing with joy. How would you like to hit up this pig cafe? An overseas experience that makes the cat cafes seem so yesterday.
Tonight, the extortion threat behind a stream of bullets.
If somebody can do it in the middle of the night, they can do it in the middle of the day as well.
Inside the trail of intimidation targeting South Asian businesses. Later on CTV National News.
And a reminder, the CTV News at 6 podcast is available as a download every weeknight. And a special shout out to those of you listening to the newscast live on News Talk 1010.
So-called animal coffee shops have popped up across Japan.
And one of the most successful is the Pig Cafe. Oh, miniature pigs cuddle with customers at the cafe in Tokyo. The animals don't get any bigger than a corgi dog and are very clean, and they don't like to be alone, apparently, so they also make great pets. The cafe opened in 2019 and is now one of 10 branches nationwide. And I'm going to guess they probably don't serve bacon products at that cafe.
Very funny. All right, one last look at the forecast. We've got some clouds that are moving in, and they're going to stick around for another day, then they're going to move out. Right now, pretty much everywhere in southern Ontario, well above seasonal, +2 in Toronto, +1 in Hamilton, +2 in Peterborough. Normal this time of year is -2. And that long-range forecast, notice the sunshine coming beginning tomorrow, or make that Friday. Sunshine all the way through, highs of 3 and 1. Again, that mild temperature is going to last into next week as well. And then finally, we're expecting a cool down.
Lots to like. Thank you, Nathan. Well, that's it for us, but be sure to join Omar Sachedina tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Natalie Johnson with our next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For all of us here at CTV News, thank you for watching and have a great night.
Guten Tag.